Hello and welcome to True Health Tuesday. This is Maria Jose-Hummel, and I am so excited because today I am live, and I haven't done this for a long time live. It's been a long time, actually. Most of these last few months, it's been pre recorded because I've been doing classes. I have been a student at Loma Linda for these last few months, as many of you already know. Uh, but it just so happens that today I have the opportunity to do this live. I'm very excited. And I think it was providential the last week. I actually tried to record this presentation, the exact same one that I'm doing today. But it just something happened. I don't know what happened to the video. I did the whole thing. I recorded the whole thing, and then the video was corrupted. I don't know what happened, so I apologize for last week. Those of you who might have connected, uh, I actually, what I guess I didn't check the video. I sent it to the production team, and the video was actually corrupted. I even went back to check the source video on the cloud, and it was corrupted. But then I'm thinking, maybe it was providential because now it's giving me the opportunity to do the presentation live, and I think that's always a blessing because it allows for the viewers to send some. To do the whatever they want to say live, comment on the chat, and we can have that interaction. So I think it's a blessing. It will also be the last presentation of 2025. I will be coming back 2026 in January, but those will be pre-recorded because I will be doing a class again on Tuesday nights. I don't know. I guess Loma Linda likes Tuesday nights. And of course, it's California time, and it just so happens to be the exact same time as True Health Tuesdays. But I have some presentations lined up for you guys. I am passionate for health, as you know. And I also, at my work, we do this conference, and we had great people invited to this last conference that we do. It's called Food as Medicine Conference. And I just got inspired with some of our guests for this conference. And also, I just attended the American College of Lifestyle Medicine yearly conference. And there's just so much inspiration there, too. So I have some inspired content for you guys. So for sure, I will be doing some of that as well. But today's presentation, Home Remedies for Viral Infections, I have to tell you, I came back from Italy. Unfortunately, I didn't put my mask on as much as I would have liked to. For sure, on the way over there, I did, but on the way back, the person, my neighbor, who was sitting next to me, kept talking to me. And at some points, I took my mask, and as you know, 15 hours in an airplane, a very confined space, people coughing around you. Well, I think I might have gotten sick while, in the airplane. I don't know. Actually, I have no idea where I got this virus, but I came home and I was just very, very sick. Of course, my immune system was low because lack of sleep and all this stuff. So I got sick, and then I remember these from 2025, actually, or sorry, 2020, when we had COVID, especially the first year. So that's when I came up with the two presentations. The first one, I hope you saw, I hope you watched it, and it was the 8 ways to improve your immune system. So if you haven't seen it, I invite you to go back to that presentation and watch it. 8 steps to strengthen your immune system. Guess what those 8 steps are? I think you already know. So that's kind of preventative, of course. But what if you already have that infection? Are there things you can do at home? Because, of course, if you need to go to the doctor, you should go to the doctor, especially if it's a very serious infection. But sometimes you go to doctors, if it's not super, super serious, you don't need to go to the hospital. And the doctor's going to say, well, go home and just, go to rest and drink a lot of water and do whatever. They're not going to give you medication because viral infections, you can't take antibiotics, for instance. They're not going to do anything for a viral infection. So they just basically tell you to go home and just rest a lot and wash your hands and that kind of thing, and just you're going to get better on your own. Well, are there things you can do at home to accelerate that process to get better on your own? Actually, there are. So that's what I want to share with you today. So that's viral, or actually any infection, any respiratory infection. Okay, these are home remedies, things you can do at home. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's have a word of prayer to get started. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the ability to do these True Health Tuesday presentations through this technology you have allowed us to use. We thank you for your love. We thank you for this message and for the fact that you are our healer and that you love us so much that you have given us this information. And we ask you to be with everyone connected tonight and everyone who will watch this presentation at some point later. Thank you for this church and bless us. Bless everyone who belongs to the church and everyone who will hopefully someday also hear this message of salvation and healing. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay. So, as I always say, this is very important, especially today. This presentation is not meant to be treatment for anyone. So if you actually, are very, very sick, you should probably go to the doctor, if it's something very serious. This is not meant to be treatment, okay? This is meant to be education and information, okay? Very general information. This is not going to be diagnosis for anyone. That's very important. Number two, as I always say, some of you already have heard this a million times, but there might be some people who are new. And I want to let you know, especially if you're Seventh-day Adventist, that I at least try. And if you feel that if I've said something that you feel is not in harmony with the Bible and the spirit of prophecy, you can call me out. That's fine. And we can have a talk about that. That's okay. Because that's how it should be. We should always be willing to talk and, let's reason together. But my spiritual disclaimer is that I at least try to always go by this rule, and I hope you do too, in spiritual matters as well as in health matters. And what does Isaiah 8:20 say? I hope you already know by heart. It says, to the law and the testimony. If they speak not according to this, it's because there's no light. There is no light, okay? And I'm talking very serious about this because I see it more and more, and I'm sorry I keep repeating this, but I'm so worried that I see it more and more, and it's really worrying me. I see it in social media all the time, even brothers and sisters that belong to our church that are putting content out there that I know for a fact is not in harmony with the Bible and spirit of prophecy. The testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy. And I don't know if it's because some of them I know for sure they know, because some of them are influencers, if you will, or experts in the field, and some of them have followers for many, many years. And some of the content they're putting out now, it kind of goes exactly in the opposite direction of what they used to teach years ago. And so it's very sad for me to see some of that. And I'm worried that some of our brothers and sisters who have belonged to the church for years, decades, maybe even generations, are being led astray. And I know that's Satan's plan all along, to lead us astray, because he knows his time is short. And he knows how important the health message is. I don't know how many of you have heard that there will be time, and maybe this time is coming soon, when there might be no opportunity to preach the gospel. There might be no opportunity to do that. It might be even against the law. But the testimony of Jesus, which is the spirit of prophecy, has told us that the message of health will actually go until the very end. So look up that quote, but that's what she has told us. So if we have the ability to get very, very familiar with this health message, we will be able to do this medical ministry until the very end, and we will be able to help people and reach people until the very end. But we need to be able to be familiar with this message to be able to do that health evangelism and medical ministry. Okay. So it's medical missionary ministry. Now, the other thing that I always say also is that what I present is also based on good scientific evidence. And what I always try to emphasize is the fact that at the very bottom of this scientific evidence hierarchy pyramid that you see here, the very bottom is expert opinion and anecdotal evidence, meaning, oh, one person I heard that got better when they did this. That's anecdotal evidence. That's a testimony of one person. Expert opinion, that might be one doctor who wrote a book. That's one person. And the Bible even says the testimony of one person is not enough. It's got to be two or more. That's why I think when we look at scientific evidence that's peer reviewed, that means there's two or more. Really, literally, there's peer review. That means a lot of people have reviewed this evidence. And I think that's, in my opinion, of course, this is just my opinion, okay? This is just me. My humble opinion is that that follows sort of like a biblical principle. Not that it's biblically in the sense that these people are Christian or whatever. No, I'm just saying it's a biblical principle when two or more people say something, and that is not what expert opinion is sometimes, because when you hear experts giving presentations on health and they just base their evidence on one person, I think that's not following a biblical principle, if you will. Okay, that's just my humble opinion. Okay, so anyway, this is what I always kind of follow, and it's been ingrained in me because I've been trained by the lifestyle, American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which was started by doctors from Loma Linda. Now it's grown to be a much bigger organization. It's not an Adventist organization in any way, but it was started by doctors from Loma Linda. Now, before you're like, oh, no, but we don't need science. Okay. I've read this a million times, so some of you already know this. A knowledge of science of all kinds is power. This is from Christian education. And it is the purpose of God that advanced science shall be taught in our schools as a preparation for what? Remember? The work that is to precede the closing scenes of Earth's history. When that might be? Do you think? 100 years from now? I personally don't think it's 50 years from now even, or even might not even be 20 years from now. I'm just saying, looking at the science of what's going on now. So closely is health related to our happiness that we cannot have the latter without the former. A practical knowledge of science. Practical, meaning we apply it to our own lives now. Practical knowledge of science of human life. Science of human life. Philosophy, anatomy, what we're doing here, science of nutrition is necessary in order to glorify God in our bodies. First angel's message. Okay, I've said enough. I say it every time. This is just review. Okay, now I'm going to use a different view so that you can see it bigger. This is what happened to me, you guys. How do you avoid getting sick on a plane? I think, especially now in the holidays, people are traveling. Of course, in Europe, people travel in trains. Same thing, though. People are in enclosed spaces, getting together with their families. And so people are getting sick a lot. In fact, you know what? I just did a program. You guys know that I do a 10-day program. And we just finished one. We just finished a round and we had excellent results. Excellent. I wish I had time to go through the results. But it's a brand new set of people that had almost all of them had never done the program before. Their cholesterols went down. I wish I had more time. But their cholesterols went down. Amazing cholesterol, LDL, their triglycerides. The average was 30% reduction in triglycerides. We had one person whose triglyceride is above 500, and our little machine is little, so it doesn't register. Above 500 doesn't even register it. It only says above 500. That's it. His number was above 500. 10 days later, well, technically 2 weeks later, because it's 2 Sundays, okay, 3 Sundays in a row. So the next 2 Sundays later, 3 Sundays, the third Sunday, basically, his triglycerides were 94. That's the biggest jump I've ever seen on triglycerides, okay? But anyway, the numbers were amazing, except for one, and it was fasting glucose. It's the first time we saw a 6% increase in the average of fasting glucose, and it's like, what happened? Why? Everybody's numbers were so good, especially cholesterol and LDL cholesterol went down 20% on average. What happened? Why everybody's glucose went up? It just didn't make sense. It didn't make sense. But then I remember one of our participants said, I was really sick this week. I had a fever and, coughing. And a person last week, coughed in my face and I almost felt their spit, on my mouth. And then I got sick that same day and I had a fever. I had to go to the blah, blah, blah. And, she was telling me how sick she was. And then I was thinking, wait, well, that definitely makes glucose go up. Getting sick, it makes your glucose go up. And then when I saw the average for the whole group, it just didn't make sense that everybody's numbers were so good except for glucose. It could be that there's, some kind of flu, COVID, or the respiratory infections, colds, whatever. It could be that there's just these respiratory infections. And that's why the average anyway, it was only 6% higher for the whole group, but it just didn't fit with everything else. So I think that's my theory. Okay. Well, anyway, so again, if you haven't watched this presentation, I already did it. So look it up in the calendar or in the channel. Okay. So if you haven't watched it, watch it. So as you might already have guessed, the 8 steps to strengthen your immune system are what we call the New Start, right? Or the 8 principles of health, which, by the way, you can find in a book that I have already recommended many, many times. Let me make this bigger for you. Pure air, sunlight. This is the top paragraph right here that I'm reading for you. The book is called Ministry of Healing, by the way. Highly recommended. It's from Ellen White, which some of us believe is the testimony of Jesus as the spirit of prophecy. We believe that she had the spirit of prophecy. Pure air, sunlight, abstemiousness, which means temperance, rest, exercise, proper diet, the use of water, trust in divine power. These are the true remedies. Every person should have knowledge of nature's remedial agencies and how to apply them. I want to stress the part where it says, these are the what? Did you see where it says right there? These are the true remedies. The true remedies. I can't even emphasize that enough, you guys, because we're so used to seeing all kinds of stuff on social media and even presentations. I have seen all kinds of stuff, even in the church. Homeopathy and herbal things and this and that and the other. Some of them are good. Some of them are not. Some of them don't work at all. These are the true remedies. There's no way to go wrong with these. You see what I'm saying? These are the true remedies. Now, there's other ones that could be added on. There are herbal remedies that work perfect. Charcoal works wonderful, but they're add-ons. These are the true ones. These are the foundation, okay? These are the foundation. What good is it to take some herb, I don't know, chamomile or valerian, or I'm just thinking off the top of my head, oregano oil. if you don't have the basics first, it doesn't do any good. I hope I'm making that point clear enough. Okay. But what I want to start today is just telling you some pretty, I think these things are pretty interesting. Okay. So let's start with the letter A, fresh air. Because I think some of these things, well, this is not just breathing fresh air, to like sort of prevent, from getting, I don't know, the flu. Not just that, okay? Not just that, but because watch, I'm gonna show you some pretty interesting information. Did you know? So what? Look at this picture. This looks very old, right? Yes, it's old. It's from like way back, more than 100 years ago. So we're talking about 1918, 1919. Do you know what happened back then? Over 100 years ago? If you're thinking of the flu pandemic that happened back then, that's correct. So, what you're looking at here is a picture of these tents that they had to put out, especially like in Massachusetts, places like that, because the hospitals were so overcrowded, they had no more space. So they had to put people in tents, not because they wanted to, it's because they ran out of space. So what happened is that when the health officials started to notice that seriously ill patients who were cared for outside the hospital in the open air actually recovered more quickly. You might have heard this, okay? But some of you might not have heard this. The people who were cared for outside, even though it was colder, it was more drafty, even, you know what I mean? Like the temperatures were colder. These people are intense. They recovered more quickly than those who remained indoors. It seemed like a combination of fresh air and sunlight could help patients stay alive longer. Huh, weird. And prevent medical staff from getting sick. Go figure. This was known as the open air method or open air treatment, which already had actually been advocated by an English doctor. His name was John Coakley Letson back in the 1700s. But nobody listens to him probably. Okay, so okay. So there's actually some papers today, more recently anyway, that have been written about this. For instance, this one actually talks about that, how back in those times, the influenza pandemic killed 50 million people, they estimate. And there was overcrowding. That's what this one says. It was overcrowding, mortality, high mortality in those hospitals because of the overcrowding. And it says right here I highlighted it for you. It says overcrowding stood out, increasing the risk of flu tenfold and the risk of flu complicated with pneumonia fivefold because of the overcrowding. Everybody was infecting each other inside of those hospitals. All right. Well, this paper was actually published much long time ago. This article titled "Weapons Against Influenza" from the American Journal of Public Health, October of 1918, actually. But it was published online much more recently, so now we have access to it. And it's talking about the outdoor treatment, how it reduced mortality in the hospitals from 40% inside the hospital to 13% outside. And it also, of course, reduced, like we said, the infections among medical personnel. And what I highlighted for you right there, this is, by the way, from the Massachusetts State Department of Health. And it says open air treatment, now they're calling it. Open air treatment of Brooks was found by the Massachusetts State Health Department to be the most valuable factor in reducing mortality. It wasn't the medications, it wasn't this or that. No, open air was the the most valuable factor in reducing mortality. Apparently, the fatality of hospital cases was reduced from 40% to 13% by the treatment. An invaluable incident to this treatment is the fact that in the open air, the immunity of the nurses and physicians is enormously increased, leaving them to carry out the great amount of work confronting them because they weren't getting infected, because they were able to breathe in the fresh air instead of being all overcrowded. It's pretty obvious now, right? Okay, well, now this one's talking about, it's the same publication, the American Journal of Public Health, but this is from 2009, and it analyzed the results. It's talking about the conventional view is that little could have been done to prevent that virus, which was a flu virus, from spreading or to treat those infected. However, there is evidence to the contrary. Records from Open Air Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts suggest that those patients and staff were spared the worst of the outbreak. A combination of fresh air and sunlight, scrupulous standards of hygiene, and reusable face masks appear to have substantially reduced deaths among some patients and infections among medical staff. Wow. Okay. I also want to show you this publication because it's called the Journal of Hospital Infections. And their analysis, not even talking about the flu thing anymore, because what actually it's what it's talking about. I'm going to blow it up even more so you can read it, little small letters. But what it's talking about is tuberculosis in this case. Okay, so I'm just going to read what I highlighted for you. I invite you to read it too. It says, for example, in the years before antibiotics. Okay, so these are bacterial infections. All right, in the years before antibiotics became available, open air therapy. Listen, you might have heard this before, but some of you might not have heard this. Open air therapy was the standard treatment for tuberculosis. Did you know? And other infectious diseases. Now I'm going to go down here, the bottom, the paragraph or the column on the left, but the bottom paragraph. It says abundant fresh air, together with sunshine, act antiseptically. That means kills pathogens upon both the bodies and the clothing of patients, destroying all organic impurities which may emanate from either, and so purifying the air that enters the respiratory organs. This is from the Journal of Hospital Infections. Okay, then up here, up in the top. During the 1950s, chemotherapy. Okay, the word chemotherapy is not talking about cancer. It's talking about the creation of new medications, chemicals. So it's not chemotherapy for cancer. It's actually medication. So it's actually, in this context, it means antibiotics. That's what it's talking about. So during the 1950s, chemotherapy superseded the open air regimen, and belief in the therapeutic and germicidal properties of outdoor air diminished. Too bad. Hospitals were no longer designed to exploit them. Then, somewhat ironically, in the 1960s, scientists involved in biodefense, did you hear that? Biodefense research, developed a technique for measuring the effect of fresh. I couldn't have said it better. They were developing a technique for measuring the effect of fresh rural air, you guys. Fresh rural air on airborne pathogens. I can't even believe this. I couldn't have said it better. Fresh rural air, air out in the country for killing airborne pathogens. They found outdoor air to be far more lethal to them, to pathogens, than indoor air. Are you listening? Both during the day and night, they use the term open air factor, OAF, to describe the germicidal constituent in outdoor air that reduces the survival and infectivity of pathogens. Is there any more that I need to say to convince you that you need to open your windows? Go outside more. Do I need to say any more? I hope not. I'm blown away. Okay. So I'm just going to skip the next few because I was actually supposed to be advancing the slides because I was just pointing out what these things say. So the whole point is that we need to ventilate. That is the point. So the first thing we need to do is we need fresh air, not just to avoid getting infected, but the fresh air actually kills pathogens and helps us to get better. Now, you might be saying, wait a minute. I live in, I don't know, Minnesota, and it's like 10 degrees out there right now. Okay. I understand. In that case, the best next thing is an air purifier. I personally use them at my work because I work with a lot of people and I don't want them to get infected if I am sick like I was last week. Or I don't want them to get me infected either because one of my patients was literally sick. So I take 3 air purifiers to work. 3. It has to have a HEPA filter. In that case, is the next best thing after opening your windows and ventilation. Ventilation is crucial. If you can't do that, then try to have an air purifier at home. All right? All right. Okay. Next thing is natural antivirals. Do you know that they're actually antivirals in the food? The medicine is in the food. Also. All right. Did you know that onions and garlic have some of the most incredibly strong antivirals that you can consume? So for many years, especially starting during COVID, but even before that, I would make this, I call it the onion smoothie actually. So I make this remedy at home every time anybody in my family gets sick. So every time my daughter gets sick, she's 20 something. She doesn't even live at home. But she gets home and she's like, Mama, can you make me the smoothie? Because I'm sick. So I make this. She has a blender. And she still asks Mama, okay, fine, I'll make the smoothie. I'll take it to you. So I make it, put it in a jar, and take it to her. Main ingredients, garlic and onion. I'll show you why, okay? Look at this. Antiviral properties of onion and garlic because of some ingredients that onion and garlic have. I'll take myself out so you can see. Onion and garlic are natural sources which are known to possess antiviral properties. Organosulfur compounds like quercetin and allicin are associated with inhibition of viral infections. Quercetin can affect entry and attachment of enterovirus and influence the virus on host cells. Quercetin also inhibits process by which virus alters signaling pathways in host cells. Organosulfur compounds like allicin and diallyl trisulfide and adjoin are main chemicals which impart antiviral properties to garlic. Garlic. Wow. Also, did you know there's another thing that you can put in that little smoothie. Doesn't taste great, all right? Of course, it's gonna taste strong. And there's something else you can put that's gonna make it stronger. Do you know what this is? Yeah, it's gonna taste strong, of course. Yes, it's ginger. But look. Okay, I'm gonna blow it up so you can see. Fresh ginger has antiviral activity against what? Human respiratory syncytial virus in human respiratory tract cell lines, not just the syncytial virus, other viruses too. I'm just giving you an example, okay? But actually, here's another one because look, this one says that ginger actually inhibits influenza virus. So it's not just syncytial virus, it's many viruses. These are all antiviral in many ways. Now, those are not the only ingredients that I put in this smoothie. I actually put a bunch of lemon. And in fact, all citrus fruits, as you probably know, have tons of vitamin C. Does anyone like, by the way, citrus? I haven't even been checking if you guys are. Where's the chat? Okay, here's the chat. Oh, Spanish flu. You guys have been commenting. Sorry, I haven't been looking. Okay, people are commenting. So put in the comment what you think about these remedies. And if you take any of these, do you guys take garlic when you get sick? Do you guys take other? I'll be mentioning other things, but do you guys take garlic and onion and lemon? These are good antivirals. But I'll show you what the citrus fruits do. Here we go. Vitamin C in acute respiratory infections. I'm just showing you a few because if I showed you all the research, we'll be here all night. But look at what vitamin C can do. This study showed a reduction in pneumonia incidence and benefits for elderly patients. So this particular study found that the vitamin C helped in reducing hospitalization and pneumonia because of pneumonia or bronchitis. So of course the vitamin C is going to help. Now, if you had to choose between natural vitamin C or synthetic vitamin C, which one do you go for? Which one would you prefer? So put it in the chat. Which one do you prefer? Now, I prefer the natural vitamin C from the actual citrus, and lemon juice is actually even more concentrated. So this is what I make. So it comes out like this. Okay, put it in a jar like I told you. But there's one more thing that I put because there's actually evidence that putting honey is medicinal. Now, I have to give you a disclaimer about this because honey makes this not technically vegan. So, as you know, the thing about the word vegan is that vegan itself, the word vegan describes a philosophy. So, I myself don't use the word vegan to describe myself. I use the word whole food plant based to describe the type of diet that I follow. Because the diet itself is whole food plant based. You can eat vegan junk food. So that's why I don't use the word vegan. And it also because it's that philosophy, which says just leave out everything that's animal based, including honey. But I actually don't leave out honey. I only use it actually for its medicinal purposes. And by the way, I look for the best quality honey. Sometimes the honey in the groceries stores, I've seen some documentaries. I don't know if you've seen them or even news stories about that. Sometimes the honey, it might be altered. So I actually look for good sources of honey, local sources of honey. Infection can increase blood sugar. Oh, somebody put that. Yes, you are right. Infection can increase blood sugar. I think that's what happened to our friends in my work, at my work. All right. So I was saying about honey. Look for really good quality honey, okay, if you use it. But what I want to show you is pretty interesting stuff about honey. So whether you use it or not is up to you. but I want to show you something that I think is very interesting because there is actual scientific evidence. Let me blow it up for you so you can see it bigger. A spoonful of honey helps a coughing child sleep. And yes, what they have found is basically scientific evidence that the honey works the same way as over-the-counter cough medicine and cold remedies. And what you might or might not know is that these over the counter medications are chemicals. So I prefer to use the honey. The honey is natural, doesn't have all these chemicals. Here's a Cochrane Library review, which is these reviews are very prestigious. And this one found that honey works exactly the same as this very, very popular over-the-counter medication for cough called dextromethorphan, which is an ingredient for over-the-counter cough remedies. But if honey works the same, why would you want to buy that stuff? In my opinion, honey is better. But that's just my opinion, okay? So if you are vegan and if you want to leave out the honey, that's fine with me. Okay, that's everybody has their own thing. So, okay, I'm ready to give you the recipe. Here's the recipe. This is how I make it. You can make your own. Okay, this has to be exactly like this. Okay, there's no rule that says it has to be exactly like this. But this is what I do. Ready? Half a cup of chopped onion, which is basically the same as half a medium onion, really. Now, does it have to be red onion? No, it doesn't. This one that I made here is not red onion. But actually, red onion is a little bit better because it has a little bit more antioxidants. As you know, the red comes from the pigments, and plant pigments are antioxidants. So red makes the smoothie look pink. So it looks even prettier. But it could be any onion. 4 to 5 cloves of garlic. That's where the power is, you guys. People are like, oh, but that's going to make my skin smell. Yes, you are going to smell. That's the point. That's the point. Don't drink the whole thing all at once. Don't even drink half of it all at once. It might be too much for your tummy. Drink like 2 or 3 tablespoons at a time throughout the day. Try to finish it in one day, though. Okay. So next is the juice of 4 large lemons. Now I have a lemon tree at my house, and the lemons are like this big. So if you only find smaller lemons, then put more. So get at least, I don't know, half a cup or a little bit more juice, maybe 3/4 of a cup at least, enough to get the blender going. And then we have 2 to 3 tablespoons of honey, and like I said, real honey. Try to get the real honey. Maybe locally produced. That would be even better because that helps with allergies, as you might know. Next would be optional, the ginger. That might make it a little bit stronger tasting, as you know. But not only does it have antiviral properties, the ginger, but as you might not know this, but the ginger helps with pain because it has that property as well. Okay, so it has the property to reduce pain and inflammation. So it's a good option to add as well. Okay, so that's one option to make it as a smoothie. Some people like it to, nice and warm, so take it as tea. Fine. There's another option. You can make like a little tea. What I do is put the honey, put a garlic, cut it up in pieces, put 1 or 2 pieces of garlic, put honey, put lemon, and just, put the garlic on top. Don't cook it. Try to eat it raw. And I just eat it first. I just eat the garlic, with a spoon and then drink the tea. And it's delicious, of course. So just try to get that garlic in. And you know what you can add also, by the way, black cumin. So I haven't mentioned black cumin. Black cumin is really, really another very, very good ingredient that you can add because it has been shown to promote immunity, scientifically shown to promote immunity. As you can see here, it attenuates oxidative stress and inflammation. It promotes immunity, cell survival, and energy metabolism. Here's another thing you can do. It's called immunity soup or immunity broth. It's nice and for those cold days. Forget about that chicken soup, okay? Don't add chicken because remember that that presentation I did last time, and it talks about the 8 steps for strengthening your immune system. And one of the steps showed that people who eat a plant-based diet have better immunity, have more natural killer cells. So if you're eating chicken soup, that's not plant-based. So scientifically speaking, a plant-based diet is better. So onion broth or onion soup is actually better than chicken soup, scientifically speaking. So make onion soup. That's better for your immune system. Put a lot of garlic, and that's better for you. Okay? So that's your immunity soup. Onion soup. Put a lot of onion and garlic. Okay, so we're done with the foods. Now let's talk about water. Okay, so last time I talked about water. And I talked, of course, drinking water is important. So do not be dehydrated. Today we're not talking about, we're not going to talk about being dehydrated or not dehydrated. We're going to go more into depth into the thing that I only mentioned briefly last time, which is the hydrotherapy. In other words, using the water externally, okay, externally. And so I'll give you a little bit more information into that, because this could be used as a treatment very effectively at home. Okay, very, very effectively. Actually, this is one of the best things you can do at home for viral, especially respiratory infections. If you have a cold, if you have COVID, if you have the flu, influenza, respiratory syncytial infections. These are the kinds of things that actually hydrotherapy is very good for. Okay, so you might have heard of steam inhalations. Of course, these are very, very famous. Do not get burned. Okay, be very, very careful. Don't cover yourself completely with that towel. Leave some space. So, of course, what you do is that you heat the water until there's steam coming out. But do you know that there are things you can add to the water? So that's where your oregano oil comes in. Oregano oil, you can also add, by the way, eucalyptus oil. You can even add actual oregano, actual eucalyptus. But of course, the essential oils are going to be more effective. Now, the essential oil, by the way, there's a difference between oil of oregano and oregano oil. The essential oil is not to be consumed. One is to be consumed, one is food grade, the other one is not food grade. The essential oil is not food grade. Don't use it for cooking. Okay, this is the essential oil. It has antiviral properties, antibacterial, antifungal, antioxidants, anti-inflammatory. Do you see how good it is? So you can add actual oregano, but if you add the essential oil, it's more concentrated. Same with the eucalyptus oil. So you can add these to the steam, breathe it in. Of course, it will help with the nasal congestion. It'll help with your sinuses. It'll help to open up all those respiratory, airways. So you can do it once, twice, 3 times a day if you have the time. Now, the other type of hydrotherapy, of course, is that hot and cold contrast. So if you can do a hot bath at home, that would be ideal if you have the time, the place, if you have a bathtub, a jacuzzi, if you have access to that. Not everybody has access. Now, the quick and easy way practically everybody can do is the shower. So this is what you would do. You would take a shower and you would do. Now, oh, by the way, this is one thing that I do not recommend for people with diabetes. Because if people have diabetes, many, many times they have neuropathy, meaning they start to lose the nerve sensations, all right? So once you start to lose that, you have to have someone else measure the water temperature for you. Do not do this if you don't have someone else measure the temperature for you. You're at higher risk for burning, okay? Don't do this unless you have someone else measure the temperature for you constantly. Otherwise, don't do it, okay? So this is not for diabetics unless someone is constantly measuring the temperature for you. Okay, having said that, the contrast showers, this is what you do. You do at least 3 minutes of hot water, maybe 105 5 is probably what most people can tolerate, a little bit more, only slowly, increasing that temperature, but not too much more. Okay. So don't get burnt. Okay. After about 3 minutes of that hot temperature, you lower it. Now that's the tricky part. To how much? Okay. It has to be a little bit of shock to your system. If you only lower it to 100, that's not uncomfortable enough. It has to be a little bit uncomfortable. Okay. If it's not uncomfortable, it's not going to be a shock to your system. It has to be a little bit of a shock to your system. That's when you get the flow of the lymph and the circulation of blood going. That's what you want. Okay. That's what you want. So you do that at least 3 times. Like I said, if you can do the bath, that's better, because that will elevate the temperature of your body. You want to do like a fever bath. That will help. Okay. So fever is actually a mechanism of our body to actually kill the pathogens in our body. So if you can imitate that with a bath, that would be great. But I want to tell you a little bit more also about this kind of treatment that you might or might not know about. So this was used abundantly in those sanitariums, those Adventist sanitariums, where people actually survived the Spanish flu much better than in the army hospitals, where that was actually the best kind of medical treatment you can get at the time, the army hospitals. But actually people in the Adventist sanitariums were actually surviving way more, because people in the sanitariums were getting fomentations, which means the hot packs that I briefly mentioned in the last presentation. So the hot packs were used actually way back. This is so easy to do, right? This was used, like I said, in the old times, because you can do it at home with hardly any fancy equipment. Last time I also said there is actually scientific evidence for the beneficial effects of this kind of treatment, because again, what's happening is that using this moist heat is more effective than dry heat. Why? Because it penetrates the skin much more than dry heat. So therefore it works actually better. Now, that contrast between hyperthermia, which is, the high heat, and then the cold, what it does, it stimulates the lymphocytes to, the lymph and the lymphocytes in the lymph to start circulating better. It actually stimulates the action of these lymphocytes to start working. Now, when you hear the word hydrotherapy and you put it in Google or whatever, you're going to see pools. That's not what we're talking about. We're not talking about, you doing exercise in a pool. That's not it. We're talking about traditional hydrotherapy. So traditional hydrotherapy, like I said, is the use of these things called fomentations. Fomentations are hot packs. Is when you actually take this, could be a towel, could be like a wool kind of rag, and you get it wet with hot water. And then you wrap it in something dry, a dry towel, for instance. Now, there's different ways how you can get the one inside wet with hot water. One way is to get them wet. You're going to need several of them, because as we saw before, you're going to put one in the back ideally and one in the chest. We're talking about for respiratory infections. If you have also some kind of muscle pain, you can use them in different parts of the body. But right now we're talking about respiratory infections. So one in the back and one in the front, that's ideal. If you don't have the ability to do that, do at least one in the chest. So you're going to need to change the one on the chest, because that's the one that's going to get cold. So you're going to change at least 3 times. So you're going to need 4 or 5 of these ones that are going to get wet and hot. So how are you going to get them wet and hot? There's several techniques. One of them would be to put them in this big tub, this big pot, if you will. That's a steaming pot. So it's going to have a rack at the bottom. You're going to heat the water at the bottom, and you're going to put these towels rolled up, wet already, and they're going to be in the steam. heating up for a few minutes until they're very, very hot. You're going to be very careful taking them out, not with your hands. All right. And you're going to take one at a time so the other ones stay in there until you need them. The other technique is to wet them and wring them again. And put them in a plastic bag, and you microwave them for 5 minutes. Be very careful taking them out. You don't want to get burned, because when you take it out, also it's going to be very, very hot. Another technique is to actually roll up your towel and grab it from the ends, and then slowly sort of dunk it into the hot water, and then wring it like this, and only hold it from the ends, and then you fold it in. And again, you wrap this fomentation, this hot, wet pack, you fold it, and then you wrap it on a dry towel, because you're going to put it on the chest and the back of a person, like I showed you here, one in the back and the one in the front. The one in the front is going to get cold, so that one you're going to change. So 5 minutes, you're going to put the one in the front, and then after 5 minutes, you're going to change it. And when you change it, you're going to take it out, and you're going to get like a hand towel, or like a face towel, something small, and you're going to wet it in ice cold water, wring it, and you're going to rub that on the chest of the person, and rub it enough so that you could see a little bit of red on the skin. So don't be shy. Just go not super, super hard until it hurts, but enough so you can see a little bit of redness on the skin. And do that for about 30 seconds, not 25 minutes, just 30 seconds. Rubbing, and put the other fomentation on. Cover the person this whole time. The other illustration did not show the blanket, because I wanted to show you where the thing goes. But cover the person the whole time. Now, alternatively, this is totally optional. You can be putting the feet on a hot bath the whole time, but that's totally alternative and optional. But it will help to increase the whole body temperature and help to elevate, the body temperature in a way that it will create somewhat of a fever as well. But it's not a fever. But it helps to elevate the temperature. So that's what you want. But the head, you want it to remain cold. That's why we have cold compresses on the head. But the person's body needs to be covered with a blanket or something, not super heavy, but a light blanket, possibly, as you see in this picture. So again, 5 minutes, the first fomentation, it's going to get cold. So take it out, do 30 seconds of rubbing, put the second fomentation for 5 minutes, take it out, 30-second rubbing, third fomentation, and then you take it out. And at the end, you end with the cold. Always end with the cold. That's what you do. So that's whole thing is called the full fomentation. Okay, so may God bless you. Thank you for always giving us so much good information. I used the mixture when my kid, you used the mixture that we probably talked about with thyme and honey. Oh, great. Thank you for sharing that. You use that mixture with thyme and honey. That's great. That sounds really, really good. Okay, now to finish this treatment, like I said, you always finish with cold. You're going to pour cold water over the feet if you had the feet on the hot bath, and then dry the feet, of course. You're going to cool the person with a cold friction. You can also use these gloves that you see as well. That's another option. Or just rubbing a cold compress vigorously on the skin. You're going to dry the person really well. They're going to put on nice warm clothing and stay in bed for 30 minutes. That last part is really, really important, because that's what's going to help for this treatment to actually be effective. So don't go off to running or off to work. Stay in bed for 30 minutes. That's very, very important, that last part. All right, so that's full fomentation. This is for respiratory infections, and this is also for muscle pain, but it would be just a local compress. That's for muscle pains. We did this during COVID season, and we remained healthy throughout. Excellent. Congratulations. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. All right, now this is the next thing I'm going to talk about real quick is the sunbathing. I'm just going to mention it real quick because Dr. Schwelt is going to talk about it. He said he would. I'm so excited. I can't wait until Dr. Schwelt does his presentations on the effect of the infrared radiation on our body. Now, as you know, the light hitting your skin, that ultraviolet radiation, so that's different from infrared. The light hitting the skin, that's very, doesn't have to be 3 or 4 hours. That's only like 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, depending on the skin color. So some of us pale people, not too long, darker skin color, a little bit more, it depends, but not very long. And this time of the year, of course, people who live in Canada or even northern the United States might not get enough sun. So that might then necessitate the use of vitamin D supplementation. All right, but I just want to let you know that there's actually very good information on the effect of the radiation that called infrared radiation on immunity. So just sitting out in the sun and getting that warmth from the sun is excellent. So you don't need to be out, in your bathing suit. No. Or even shorts. No. Just sit there with clothing because that infrared radiation is what's benefiting the immune system. Dr. Schultz tells all kinds of stories about this, of healing, amazing healing. So watch his videos. I'm not going to have time to talk about this. But the skin, so also you need a little bit of skin exposure throughout the year. If if it's super, super cold and you live very up north, then a little bit of vitamin D during the winter. Because during the COVID pandemic, those who were had deficiency of vitamin D had high mortality, very, very high mortality. So you don't want to have deficiency. And again, back then and during the other pandemic, back in the 1918 pandemic, hospitals used to have large windows where the sun would actually come in. Of course, the air would come in. Nowadays, that doesn't happen because you can't even open a window in the hospitals. Terrible. But back then, yes, you could. Okay, let's talk about rest real quick. And I'm not just talking about sleep. Of course, you need to sleep, okay? Sleep is extremely important. 8 hours. If you're not getting your 7 at least, your immunity is going to go downhill quickly. So sleep is extremely important. But I'm going to talk about something else because I think most people don't know this. And I was confronted with this reality when I got COVID. And again, when I got COVID 2 weeks, or not COVID, I don't know what I had because I tested for COVID. It wasn't COVID. I got the flu. Not sure what I got. I didn't have a fever. I don't know what I got. I got a cold, whatever. But I tried to exercise after I got sick, and I felt bad. I'm telling you, I felt the same way when I had COVID. And it's just this like tiredness and almost fatigue, okay? And since COVID especially, there's a lot of people who are getting this similar symptoms to chronic fatigue syndrome. They're finding this post viral syndrome, very similar to chronic fatigue syndrome or MECSF, where people just, and one of the reasons they're saying is because people are not resting enough, which is kind of weird because sometimes we say, well, exercise is one of the true remedies, right? It's one of the new start principles. We need to exercise. It's good for us, this and that. But rest is also a remedy. And there's a place for it when we're sick. And not resting enough could be actually very dangerous after an infection. And what this article is talking about is precisely that. People who are getting certain kinds of infection, not just COVID, but other types of viral infection, and they're not resting properly after the viral infection, are getting these post viral syndromes. And of course, some of these symptoms, and I've talked to people who have this like fatigue. And I'm like, why do I feel like this? Is this post-viral syndrome? And it's growing in an incidence, right? Because people are not resting properly. Make sure you don't run to the gym after getting sick. Okay, give your body time to heal. 1, 2 weeks, well, however much it needs. Just give yourself some time to heal. You don't need to run 15 miles all the time, or go to the gym. Rest. Make sure you rest properly. Okay, of course, sleeping, your weekly rest, all those kinds of rest. They're all important. Okay, let's talk about diet real quick. As you know, I already mentioned this last time, and I just mentioned it like a few minutes ago. So I'm just going to mention it briefly because last presentation, I talked about this with more detail. This study says people who eat a plant-based diet have better immunity. I'm not saying it. The research has shown that people who eat a plant-based diet have higher activity of natural killer cells. That is your immune system. Therefore, when you eat a plant-based diet, you are better prepared for those infections. But I also want to mention something real quick, which is kind of like a myth. And I hear even my family say it sometimes that, or you probably heard this, right? Like, so this is a very interesting article because if you put in Google feed a cold, starve a fever, and you're going to see all these articles about, oh, is it true? Fact or fiction? Like this one says, fact or fiction? Feed a cold, starve a fever. What do you think? Is it true? Is it a myth? Blah, blah, blah. Well, all of the articles about this, they're all going to say the same thing. It's a myth. Feed both. They're all going to say the same thing. At least all the ones that I've read. They're all going to say, feed both. This is a myth. You need to eat. Don't starve yourself, blah, blah, blah. Which is extremely interesting to me because of the fact that we have been talking a lot lately, and this has been coming up in the literature a lot. Do you remember when we did the presentation on fasting? Do you remember this presentation? Do you remember how fasting actually helps the immune system? Do you remember? I'm going to put it a little bit bigger for you. I don't know if you can read it. These are very, very small letters. But it says that the fasting was talking about any kind of fasting actually, but the immune system is actually boosted when you fast. And it also, when we did this presentation, we actually talked about how sometimes people naturally feel a lack of appetite when they feel sick. So so there's more, by the way. There's other studies. Here's another one. This one talks about how your immune response improves, inflammation goes down, etc. So this is not one off. There's been many studies. Okay, so it's not like, okay, so here's what I want to say. Here's my point. Okay, so if you are not feeling hungry, what would you want to force yourself to eat? Or do you think, okay, so my question is, do you think it's a wise thing to force yourself to eat? Is it a natural thing to force yourself to eat? Because I've heard people actually tell me this. People from church, people from my family. No. If you're sick, you need to eat. But I'm not hungry. No, but you need it. Your body needs it. And that article was actually saying the exact same thing. Feed both. Your body needs it. Blah, blah, blah. Where the literature is actually saying something a little bit different. The scientific literature, the research is showing that fasting helps the immune system. So I'd say, my opinion, of course, this is just my opinion based on the research. If you're not hungry when you get sick, don't let anyone force you to eat. Follow that instinct. Your body's telling you that is it doesn't want to eat. Don't force yourself to eat. Fasting. When we talked about fasting, if you want to go back to that presentation, review this. But when we talked about fasting, we discovered that actually not eating is healing because you're allowing that energy that actually goes to the digestive system to go to other functions, namely healing functions, detoxifying, repair of tissues, all kinds of things. So you're liberating the healing properties of your body, if you will, when you're not eating. So don't force your body to do things it doesn't need to do at the moment. Okay. So usually the argument goes, no, but your body needs energy. Well, you're taking away energy when you're eating. It's not like you are, unless you are, if your BMI is like 16, meaning you are like literally starving to death, like you're super skinny, which most people nowadays are not. So you probably have enough reserves to go for a couple of days eating very light. I'm not saying don't eat at all, but just, eat like a soup, a broth, an onion soup would be great. Eat light. It's not like you're going to die if you don't eat, heavy meals for a couple of days. I'm not saying start for 40 days, just a few days. You're probably going to be better off because you're liberating that energy that would go to the digestive system to heal you. Just my humble opinion on this, okay? Just saying. Okay. I want to leave you with the same verse we did last presentation. So this is kind of like, consider this a series of presentations. Last one was how to strengthen the immune system. Today's presentation is remedies. What to do when you're already sick, in other words, okay? But for both, I want to give you the same verse. And it's this. If you listen carefully to the Lord your God, and you do what is right in his eyes, if you pay attention to his commandments, and the spirit of prophecy has told us that this includes the laws of health, and keep all his decrees, I will not bring on you any of the diseases I brought on the Egyptians, for I am the Lord who heals you. I want to say two things about this. First of all, and when they have done, the research on the Egyptians and the archaeology and all that, they have found the Egyptians had probably the same diseases. But you understand that the Egyptians that are in the tombs are not the poor ones, right? They're the pharaohs and the aristocracy of Egypt, right? So they are the ones who ate a rich diet, probably. Well, they had probably a rich diet, and they had the same diseases that we have today. Some of them probably had diabetes and cancers, all very similar to today. All right. So that's point number one. Point number two about this is that the verse starts with if. If. And what this tells me is that, as many other promises in the Bible, this verse indicates that God's promises are conditional. Many other promises are conditional as well. God's promises for blessings are conditional. In other words, he wants to heal you. He says he is the Lord who heals you. But we have to listen to his commandments. Listen to what he's telling us to do. Because let's say, for instance, there is a person who's smoking cigarettes and he sees this verse. He says, please, Lord, I have lung cancer. Can you please heal me? You have said that you are the Lord who heals me. I need healing of my lung cancer. All right. Well, but he continues to smoke. He continues to smoke. Would that be a good thing for him if God healed him? Because he's not paying attention to the first part of the verse. Because the first part of the verse says, if you listen carefully to the Lord your God and do what is right in his eyes and pay attention to his commands. So all of that in that that would include, taking care of his body as a temple, right? And by smoking, he's not doing that. He's not glorifying God in his body. He's not following the laws of health. And if God healed him, he wouldn't learn that lesson. He would not learn that lesson. He would probably continue to smoke. He wouldn't learn the lesson that the cancer came from the smoking. It wouldn't make sense for God to heal him. He would only probably make more, God would be doing him more wrong than good, actually. Does that make sense? If we're not going to the root of the cause of our diseases, and God actually heals our diseases, and we're not correcting the root of our disease, and we continue in that behavior that causes the disease, it does no good for God to heal us if we're going to continue doing what causes the disease. We're going to just get sick again because we haven't removed the cause. Does that make sense? So most of the diseases of today are lifestyle related, are either related to our diet, our lack of exercise, our consumption of substances that might be hurting us, like alcohol or cigarette or sugar. Yeah, that's another drug. Sugar is a drug. We've talked about it. I hope you've seen that presentation. Sugar is a drug. So is junk food. It's hurting us. It's causing us damage. Our arteries, cholesterol, right? All these things. So if God was to heal us, would he do us good if we continue to cause damage to our body? We're not learning that lesson. So I just want to leave you that thought, so we can meditate on this, on what this all actually means, for us. If you listen carefully to the Lord your God, meaning everything he says, when he says to take care of our body as a temple and to glorify God in our bodies. What does that mean in practical terms? Okay, so last thing I want to do is give you my website for those of you who haven't seen it before. It is healthfortoday.net, healthfortoday.net. And as you know, you can get a 10-day plan. You guys, I'm telling you, by the way, I've already done 10 days to better health. That was one of the topics I did from the very beginning, okay? And it is, of course, following a plant-based diet. So if you go to this website, you can actually download, you see up there where it says 10-day challenge. If you click on that, you can download a PDF that is also called the 10-day Daniel challenge, because as you know, in the Bible, there is an example of young men who followed a 10-day plan. And as I told you, I saw this just last Sunday. Amazing results. I see it all the time. But this group was fantastic. I mean, the amazing results. Amazing. 20% average drop in cholesterol for this group. We had 32 participants, something like that. Average drop in LDL cholesterol, 20%. Average drop in total cholesterol, 20%. Average drop in triglycerides, 30%. The only reason why they had an increase in glucose is because there's a viruses going around. What did they follow? A plant-based diet. So my point was, next time, the next topic that I want to cover is the original diet. There's a lot of controversies over this. Are humans supposed to actually eat meat or not? Are we omnivores? So for our work, we invited Dr. I forget his last name, Milton Mills. I think it's Dr. Mills. We had him as a guest in our food as medicine conference, and I always forget his last name. I'm terrible with names, but anyway, he's so good when he talks about this, right? And he just gave a great presentation on this. So I'm going to borrow some of his points. We are not. Our anatomy and physiology is not. But I also want to take it from the biblical aspect as well. How God wants to take us back to his original plan. Anyway, that's coming up next year. Also, of course, at the beginning of the year, a new beginning. It's a great time to do a 10-day challenge. How many of you want to do a 10-day challenge? Beginning of next year. So you have until, there's still Christmas, New Year's. But how many of you want to do a 10-day challenge starting next year? Let me know. So that, it could be a Living Manna online church 10-day challenge. It would be great, wouldn't it? All right, you guys. Thank you. Okay, YBJ D2K. Thank you for connecting. I am so happy you guys connected tonight. I hope this was useful. And if you get sick, I hope some of this information can be helpful, because winter hasn't even started yet. So we have some months ahead of us that this could be useful for us, this information that was given. So if anyone of your family gets sick, if anyone that at work gets sick, feel free to share this information, like this information, share the link. And of course, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. It will help our channel to grow more and this information to get to more people. So thank you. Let's finish with word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you again for all the blessings you give us. Thank you for allowing us to learn this wonderful and valuable information. Thank you, Lord, for giving us this message. It's such an important message that maybe other denominations may not have, but you have given us this treasure of information. Thank you for caring for us, for being our God who heals us. And help us, Lord, to treat our body as a temple of your Holy Spirit, that we may glorify you in our bodies, and that we may be able to help other people as well who might be sick, and to help them as well get healthier and to heal, and to take this information to people who might be suffering and who might not know how to properly take care of their bodies. Help us to be missionaries for you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So thank you once again, and have a good night. And we'll see you in 2026, everybody. So have a wonderful, wonderful Christmas and Happy New Year's. And we'll see you next year. God bless you, and have a wonderful, wonderful evening.